many clips where I'm talking about not allowing fear to stop you from going after your dreams. I've also shared the importance of taking action and how that will increase your competence in whatever area. And so you may be wondering, how do you know? How do you know that I shouldn't let fear stop me? How are you so convinced that if you take action, the way will become clear? Now, I could give you so many examples of why I am so confident that clarity comes from taking action, and why I'm so confident that as your competence increases, your confidence increases. Your confidence will grow. And you know that even if you don't get the results or the answers you expected, you will get enough that will support your next decision. So my first business I opened when I was 23 years old, and it was a retail on a high street. I knew nothing about that. I'd never done it before, but I had a love sales and customer service, and I absolutely had a love for selling baby goods. That's what I did. I sold baby goods. I was an independent retailer of baby goods, prams, cots from birth 0 to 3, and that was for brands like Mamas and Papas, Chico, all the brands, Claire de Lune, Silver Cross. I decided to open my own store. So that helps you with the backstory. So I opened this business, but before I got there, I had to do a business plan. Again, that shows taking action. There's no point having the dream if you're not going to take the action. So I had the idea that I would love to do this. Up until this point, I knew I still didn't know exactly what I wanted. I just know I wanted to be successful. And looking back, I was learning what that meant for me, and that's why it's so important for you to explore your ideas. So clearly that wasn't a lifetime career, but I learned so much. So I went about to sign on a 6-month course, managed to speak to my then manager, who was another brilliant manager. I have had 2 or 3 absolutely brilliant managers as an employee, and they have been instrumental in my. And so my manager gave me 1 day a week to go and explore and take advantage of the opportunity to get trained in business and to create my business plan, so that I was able to submit it to the banks and go for the funding. I was looking for about 120,000. Just moving forward, before I even got to the stage of finishing the business case, I saw the building on the high street in the spot that I wanted to have my store. I saw it, I loved it, it was empty, and to be honest, it didn't even matter if it was empty. And I decided that that was the building that I wanted. That was the space. It was the perfect space. It was so cute. It just was ideal for the idea of what I wanted to create in the. So I decided that was the building. And in making that decision, everything else came off the table. There was no other option but that option. I was completely, call it delusional. I believed 100% that that was going to be. I don't think I've ever believed anything the way I believed that that was going to be the building. And this was long before my business case was approved by the organization I was working with to create it, long before I had any funding, long before I even approached the landlord regarding my interest in the property, right? This was at the start of the 6 months training to create a business plan, to formally create a business plan. And there was another 6 months which took from the minute the business plan was approved to getting the funding to start. So that was an entire year before I actually stepped foot in that building and called it my own. And in the end, the space was mine. I negotiated rent for that property. It was home for me for about 3 years. I was running my business, and it looked exactly how I'd intended. I made a decision for myself that that space was going to be the space where I ran this business for, and my dream became a reality. And so when I share with you about the importance of taking action, I didn't know whether my business case was going to be approved as one of the candidates that could move forward. I didn't know that all the funding organizations that I went to, including the bank, were going to approve my funding. The funding process was so complicated because before I got to the banks, I had to show that I had some money towards the business. So I had to apply to other business funders before to secure their 50% of the money, that the bank would agree to fund me the other 50%. I came up against so many roadblocks and challenges. Now I see that there were roadblocks, but at the time there was nothing that was going to stop me. There was no negative beliefs. There was no one even in a position of power that could tell me that this wasn't a good idea, it wasn't going to work, and I wasn't worthy of that money to start. In the final process of the bank and of the approval, one question, it was a question and a statement at the same time, like, how are you going to manage parking? And one person on the panel said, well, I know Alfreton Road, so it was in Nottingham, Alfreton Road. So there's no parking and nobody's going to come to a store that they can't park. I was thinking, is this person for real? The amount of business that takes place in that one place, it's just, even though there's no parking, people still shop. It's constantly busy. But I didn't even have to respond because the bank manager said, because of the nature of what Kadisha is providing to the community and it doesn't even exist there, I don't think that there will be a problem with parking, and even gave me tips on how to make sure I was signposting, letting people know beforehand that where they could park, how long they could park for, where they could park, and he approved the application. Now I hope that I've shared this in such a way that you get the point that I'm trying to make. And the point I'm trying to make is you do not have to wait until you've got all the green lights, you've got all the approval to take action, because most of the time no one will pay attention, no one will take notice until you move. Most of the time, it's when you've taken action, you've taken the first step and engage, and then you take the next step and the next step. That's when doors start opening for you. If you're waiting for doors to be open long before you take action, I promise you that you will be waiting for a very long time. And so that's why I am so confident, and so many successful people before me will share with you that is why we know that action taking is important if you're gonna get to your goals, if you're gonna live your dreams, if you're gonna be, do, and have the things that you would love in your life. You have to be prepared to set down the fears that keep you stuck. You have to be prepared to not worry about what if it doesn't work, and be fully convinced and fully willing to be open to what if it does work. So when I share those nuggets about fear and not feeling stuck and how you can overcome those challenges, it's because I practice that on a daily basis. So I've given you one example of when I was 23. That was like 19 years ago. That was my first memorable experience. I had many experiences before, but so much of what I was going after was out of my control. So much of what I was going after was out of my control, but I had to do the things that were in my control. It was in my control. I had a dream. It was then in my control to find out who could support me to build my business plan, to support me to understand more about business and the structure and what I needed, to find the people that would fund such a dream, to put myself out there, be able to not be afraid to go for it, because what's the worst that could happen if they said no? I tried. But I fully believed that if I put my whole self in it, and if I demonstrated the need, that it would be a yes. And it was a yes. And I did start my business and I did run a successful business, and I've never looked back since. So keep taking action. Do not allow fear to stop you from going after your dreams, because what you'll get out of it, the person that you become, there's no price that you can put on that. But during the process, by taking action, you're increasing your confidence. You're increasing your confidence, your competence. Whenever your competence is developing and getting better, your confidence is gonna increase. And you get to live, you get to be the best version of you. So don't stay in the shadows wondering what if, being stuck. Just go out there and do what you need to do to achieve your goals.